Continuing on with the TMCC Library Open Genealogy Lab Outstanding Guest Speaker Series, today we are pleased to present Christy Dorney. Christy has a BS in Social Studies Education and an MLIS from Florida State University. She worked in public school media centers before joining the Jacksonville Public Library in July of 2000. She has a background in youth services, adult services, and branch management. She transferred to the Special Collections Department in August 2022 to be the genealogy specialist. And Christy is a member of the National Genealogical Society, New England Historic Genealogical Society, Florida Genealogical Society, and the Irish Ancestral Research Association. She began her family tree in the mid-1980s when she and her mother visited the University of Florida Library to view the 1850 census of her great-great-grandparents. She has worked on it off and on ever since and still has those darn brick walls like we all do. Christy has traveled to several states and Ireland to work on her family history. One day she hopes to visit the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. She enjoys helping others begin their researching on their family trees. So today, Christy's going to give a short presentation about the Memory Lab available at the Jacksonville Public Library in Jacksonville, Florida. She will then demonstrate how to digitize slides and negatives. So I'd like to offer a warm virtual welcome to Christy.
Thank you. As she said, I'm Christy Dorney, and I work at the Jacksonville Public Library in the Special Collections Department. And in September of 2022, we opened our Memory Lab. It was funded by a grant from the LSTA, Library Services and Technology Act of the Florida State Library. And this past year, we were given a Mellon grant for $1 million to be spent over 5 years. Part of it was to expand our memory lab, which you can see some of the most recent equipment there in the front of the screen. And it's also going to allow us to highly develop our African American history collection, as well as do additional digitization positions and research and oral history of the African American community in Jacksonville, which is rather a rich history, as I have been learning being in special collections. So this picture here shows you our memory lab, which we received our newest equipment in April of this year. And there is one table that looks a little empty. We were waiting on a couple computers that were lagging behind the time. So Special Collections is on the 4th floor of the main library downtown in Jacksonville. And there's a small map. We are right across the street from the James Weldon Johnson Park, which once was known as Hemming Plaza. We are open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. And we have a very easy phone number of 904-255-BOOK. And they can put you in touch with us for answering any of your needs if you need to get a hold of us. So what can be digitized here? Basically anything. Film, audio, video, music, photos, slides, negatives, documents, and books. We have film reels. On the left-hand side is one of those old-fashioned film projectors. And that is a special setup that this gentleman has devised to digitize old film reels. It actually shoots into a camcorder, and then we can put it from the SD card onto a flash drive. And on the right-hand side is our newest piece of equipment called Blackmagic. And all I do is open it up to look at it right there, and I go, ooh, isn't that pretty? I do not know how to run that. My coworkers are determining that now. So with the Blackmagic, we can do 35 millimeter. And we can also do 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter, Super 8 millimeter. And the size of the film reel gives you an idea of how long it is. So 3-inch reel and diameter is about 3 minutes, 5 inches is about 13 minutes, and 7 inches is about 27 minutes. We can do audio. Those are old film audio reel-to-reels. A 5-inch reel can be about an hour and 20 minutes long for one side, depending on the speed of recording. And if it was recorded on both sides, then you're going to have to double that time. Audacity is a free program that we use. And we now have a micro cassette player that we have had people coming in to digitize what was on those old micro cassettes. We can do video. We have VHS and the converter for VHS-C. We can do a Betamax. That's one of our newest equipment. We can do Hi8, mini DV, and we actually have the Hi8 player. We also have camcorder. We had to use camcorders for a while for Hi8. The player makes it so much easier. This is our music station. We can do vinyl records and audio cassettes. I have not done a vinyl record, but I have done an audio cassette, and Audacity is once again the program that's used. It's very simple to get started to do basic recording with Audacity. But it lets you do a whole lot more, let me tell you. So records and cassettes, I've loved it. We can do photos, slides, and negatives, which is what I'll be showing you later. We have the Epson Perfection 600 photo, which some people may have in their homes. And then we recently, with our new grant, we got the Epson Expressions, the XL, 13,000 XL, which can do so much more. It's fascinating. With those devices, we can scan up to 11 inches by 17 inches, slides up to 30 slides, and negatives up to 8 strips. And when we say up to 30 slides, it can do each slide as a separate file, and it can do negatives up, each negative image as a separate file. The expressions, you can also put down several photos and it will scan each one into a separate file. I personally don't understand how it does that. I think it's computer magic, but it does work, as I helped someone with it just this morning. And then we have this, the Epson Fast Photo FF68W. It can scan up to 30 photos at a time, and it's best for similarly sized photos. One nice thing about this is it will also scan the back of the photo. So say image 5 had something on the back, it would be image 5A for the front of it, image 5B for the back side. So you can get all that stuff that used to be written, and it keeps it image-wise together so you know that they pair together. Depending on the resolution size, it'll either go fairly fast or it will go a little slower. It's almost like using a copy machine, but each photo will be as a separate file. It's love watching this and doing this. It can also take documents. We have a book eye. It allows up to 24 inches by 18.5 inches. Books face up. Whereas on a flatbed scanner, books face down. So you can imagine some of those older books you don't want to squish on a copier or a flatbed scanner. This way it works so much better. It can be held up in a V-shaped cradle, or it can be face down, laid flat. We had someone last Saturday bring in some photos that she had in a frame that she could not remove from the frame. So we were able to get the photos in the frame scanned, so they're digitized now, even with the frame in there. And we have the art museum next door coming over and doing some scanning of some of their items. And what is so cool, and I love, we have CD, DVD, and an external 3.5-inch disk drive. So you can retrieve those files you thought you've lost forever, such as my 3.5-inch floppy disks that have my first photos from when I went to Ireland in 1999. I do want to, have those on something better and safer, since computers nowadays, you cannot get them with CDs and DVDs often. And we do have some veterans, being a Navy town, who come in with their military records on a CD. They're like, I need to get something off of here. Do you have something? We're like, yeah, sure, come on in. We've also had veterans come in with microfiche, and we put them on our microfilm, microfiche devices, and they've been able to get to their records. So we save a lot of people up here. But you do have to plan ahead before you digitize anything. You will need a Jacksonville Public Library card or a guest pass. And we do have library cards for people who are out of town that do not want to purchase a regular card. We have what's called a Connect card that allows you to do study rooms, program reservations, and computers. And those are free library cards. You'll need a flash drive of at least 8 gigabytes or an external hard drive. Headphones or earbuds for if you're doing audio, music, or video. We do have headphones for borrowing. And a book or something else to do while waiting. Film, audio, video, and music is digitized in real time. So that 90-minute recording may take close to 2 hours to complete by the time you set it up to tell it to record directly to your device, to name it, to make sure everything's being seen correctly, and then the final little bit of processing time it takes at the end. So we're like, make sure you bring a book to read, though we do have plenty of books elsewhere in the building. Now, for the film and audio reels, those make appointments. You can go onto our website to book an appointment. That's the website address there, https://jackspubliclibrary.org/research/collections. You just put in that basic information. You can request a 1-hour genealogy research help, which is with me, a map tour of our special collections, or to put in to help with the digitized material. Once you fill that part out, and you choose digitizing, it asks you, what are you digitizing? VHS, audio, film, photo slides, or negatives. And then you can put in some additional information. It's like, I don't know what type of film I have. It's either 8, Super 8. Help me, please. We get all sorts of interesting information into there. And that gets sent to us, and we can contact you to set up an appointment for the film reels and the audio reels. As you notice from the equipment, it is not easy to replace that equipment, so we do not have customers use those by themselves. We do have staff actually operate those. But all other stuff is do it yourself. We will assist you to help you get started. And as necessary during the process, we have cheat sheets that help you. And you can learn about Audacity and Photoshop. If your library has access to LinkedIn Learning, you can easily go there. We have it. You have to have a library card to be able to use it through our library. Audacity, I'm telling you, I did maybe 5 of the lessons to get started to be able to help somebody. And that was a small, tiny portion of what it can tell you, because with Audacity, you can mix music and do all sorts of insane things. And then we do have Photoshop for people who want to be able to play around with their videos and their photos and negatives and things like that. But that is all for you to learn and for you to do. It is not for us. We're not going to help you through that part because that's just a little beyond our scope. So reservations are most needed on Saturdays. We can reserve a computer for you at our 255 book phone number. And then just what I generally tell my local people, we have a digitized neighborhood collection, and we do take donations of yearbooks. Of course, I cannot go anywhere without reminding people about family history. We are an affiliate library, and we do have previous issues of genealogy magazines and journals. I have a surname and cemetery files. And I did have them put onto our online catalog so people can search to see if we have them. So now that that part is out of the way, I'm going to take you into my photo. So this is the Epson Scan 600. So when you start, I will have to be hitting pause on this because I had to cut this down to in order to make it work. So when you start the Epson scanner software, it's whatever software comes with the scanner, you're going to change it from full auto mode to home mode. If you want to be able to do a lot more editing, contrast, brightness, saturation and stuff, you can go into the professional mode. But what we have,
Christy, I didn't mean to
yes,
interrupt, but we are seeing your screen with a bunch of files. Is that what you wanted us to see?
no, this should be, that should be,
Yeah, we're seeing a white screen with a lot of file names.
okay, do you,
Yes, yeah.
okay, good. So you want to do the home mode, which is the easiest mode to use. It's what we recommend, but we do put people in professional mode if there's something a little crazy going on. So once you put it onto home mode, another screen will pop up will do. And that's where you're going to make some choices. The first thing you'll need to do is to choose what are you scanning? Photo, positive film, color negative film, black and white negative film. If it's a slide, it's positive film. If it's a negative, obviously it'll be the negative film. You can also choose other types of items that you're going to be doing as for the scanning. So, but first we're doing positive film for the slides. Let's just going to do something. Why is it going to negative? And then you choose to, at that point, you're going to choose the DPI. That's the resolution. One of the files I sent to you is a way of choosing your resolution. We did get that from one of our people who is more specialized in digitization. What she has said that 300 is basically if you're going to keep it the same size, you use 300. If you're going to want to do more with it, such as expand it, enlarge it, print it, then you're going to want to do it as a larger size. So it is something where you can choose the actual resolution. Now, the larger the resolution, the more memory it's going to take. I chose to do color restoration, and then you have a, oh, that's where I'm doing my negatives. But that's the carrier there that you put the slides and negatives into. And it's just placing them down and you put the cover back over it. And that just holds it still. For some reason, my negatives have that strange paper attachment to it. I do not know why. But once it's locked in there, it holds it and you can pick it up to be able to move it over. So when you open up your scanner, you're going to take that white plat off. So there's a window under it. They sometimes call that a transparency mode, but that lets light go through into where you're scanning. And however you have your template, there's a letter and there's a little slot that will let you fix it into place. And so when it closes, it's going to be right there where you need it. So you always do preview first. And I did kind of cut the timing of this. And it shows you, as you can see, each of the negatives shows up separately. Since one of my strips was upside down, the photos are kind of upside down. That's something you can change at this point, and it's really fairly simple. And yes, I did have my picture taken outside of a restaurant called Christie's, though that's not how I spell my name. So by choosing under size, I can see the thumbnail smaller, or I can see an individual thumbnail. And that is where I can change the rotation of it. Now you'll notice the dotted lines. That is going to show you the actual part that's going to be scanned. So by clicking on the little thing under the rotation, you can then choose the aspect part of that you want to have scanned. This most often happens with negatives, and it can happen with slides. You rarely see it with photos. So I just clicked and dragged it to cover my entire photo. With this one, I chose to do a little differently. I didn't want the blurry part of the tree, so I started at the other edge and I did a click and drag only on the part I wanted. So it's one way of going ahead and cropping some of what you're doing before you actually do the scan. And then I just rotated some other things around. And at this point you can choose, you know what, I don't want a couple of these. I don't want that one. I don't like that one. I don't want to scan it. And of course that one was out of bus window. I don't want that one. So I unclicked them. I didn't want to scan them, but the other ones I did. So once you know you've got things the way you want it, it's going to scan the areas you want, it's facing the way you want, you click scan. Now this is where it will take a little bit of time. And of course I cheat here and slice the video so it wasn't quite so long. Higher DPI, the longer it will take. When it's done scanning, it shows you where you saved it as individual files, and it will show you where you have it saved it at. So yay, my photos were scanned. They're saved into my flash drive. I know they're there, and I don't need to worry about them anymore. So at that point, I take that carrier tray out, the holder, and I just pop out the top, and then I'm done with doing the negatives. Or you put the next negatives in. In this case, we're going to do some slides. So this time you put it in, and you'll see the little tab on the side of the carrier, and I match it up with the same letter tab in the scanner, and I know it's in the right position for the slides. I'll take my slides. I thought I fixed that a little better on there. I was using a whole new program on editing on video, so it was a little crazy. So after I figured out which side is the way I needed them to go, you put the emulsion side down. And I actually tried both ways on my slides. I couldn't tell a difference, but apparently there is. But you'll notice on my slides, I have two different size negatives in there. I have a square and I have the rectangular. The top two is 126 film, the bottom two are 35 millimeter film, and wait till you see what it does. When my parents passed away, I took all 800 plus of their slides and had them digitized. I paid for it. When you change accent modes, it will make sure you're doing it. So I've changed it to positive film. I paid 20 to 25 cents for over 800 slides to have them done. And the top two, and all four of these are part of the slides I did. Notice how that digital line is for that slide. So it's cutting off part of the picture. It also has two black streaks because it's not a full 35 millimeter. I've called Epson, they don't have a setting for anything but 35 millimeter. So this is when going to the single image and yes, that's me. Doing the click and drag is best. Now I'll be showing you a picture of what happened with the slides that I had digitized and then had printed. And I was really, really disappointed. I had to go back to the slide to look, which is why I chose this particular slides for this project. That's the print I got back. And I questioned, why is there just the top of my head? And that's my mother, sister, brother, and I, somewhere in the Smokies. So once I did make sure I had my full images, the scanners were everywhere, I told it to go ahead and scan. And when it pops up that I have it saved, I have my scans correct now. And you'll see I have my other photos there with it. I then kind of changed it. So you'll see my new saving of my digitized slide is so much better than just seeing the top of my head. So, and I don't need the screen share anymore. And okay. Can't see where I need to get out of things. No, I want to stop screen sharing. Stop screen sharing.
Now we're seeing your desktop with the scuba
Yeah, I'm
dive.
trying to figure out how to stop screen sharing. There it is. Okay.
Perfect.
So that is the basic, that's the video is just a real basic and quick version of how to do it. It really is very simple in order to do it. That's software. Once you do it once or twice, it is so simple. One of the documents I sent you, I took videos step by step to every part of it, starting with, the pictures of the scanner. How do you determine where to save it to? I did screenshots for aspect of it. And it's basically it's a rinse and repeat. Once you choose the mode, which is either positive film for slides, negative film for negatives, and then you choose the resolution, you do preview to make sure it's showing you what you need. You can change those dotted lines to however you need it to. And I had to learn that. That took a while for me to figure out and remember. And then you scan. And then you just, once those are finished scanning, you take the cartridge template holder out, switch out your slides, switch out your negatives, whichever you're doing, put the next set in, and hit preview again. And, that's why at the beginning, when you're doing the resolution and all that, there's a little folder tab, which somehow I cropped that out of the video, where you choose to have it automatically saved to your USB or your external hard drive. That way you don't have to worry about a sudden power failure. You don't have to worry about it's the end of the time and our computers are shutting off. And that has happened to someone who had been scanning 200 photos and she lost all of them. But by having it go directly to the ISB as it's doing it helps. There's even a way for you to, as you're doing it, name that segment of photos. So if you're new, like the slides that were at the bottom that showed my father, my sister, and me walking on a wall, and then my mom and two of my siblings and a little schoolhouse. Those were when we were going up to DC in 1969. And so if I was just doing those, I could name them Blue Ridge Parkway and DC, and then it would have all of them with that, with just 1, 2, 3, 4 in successive numbers for each image as I saved. If it's your family trip to, grandma's 100th birthday, It would be, grandma's birthday 1, grandma's birthday 2, etc. So you could just do those segments of photos so that they all have the same first name, so you're not having to rename each image as you go along. You can do that as it's being done. And as I said, if you do the professional modes, you can get into the contrast, the brightness, a lot more different aspects. And once it's saved, you can then use Photoshop to play with tricks. When I had my genealogy group here last week for a visit, one of the ladies made a suggestion that have it save as a TIFF file, which is a much larger file. It's uncompressed, and have that as your archive copy. And then you can open it, save it a copy as a JPEG, make your edits to it. A JPEG is compressed, and each time you do a change to a JPEG, you're kind of changing the composition of it, changing the quality of it. So she always suggested having a TIFF as like an archival original copy of it. But it can and will take a lot of memory. The higher the resolution, the longer it will take. The big scanner I showed you will do 30 slides at a time. And what we generally have been having people do, because there's these 2 tabs the slides go under on those, is have them do 15 at a time. And while those 15 are scanning, they can start putting their next set of 15 into the next holder and put it on, get those scanned, and then they're just doing a rotation. When we're having people do photos like the lady earlier to this morning, we're doing multiple photos on the scanner. While they were scanning, she was getting her next set of photos ready to be placed on the screen. So someone said before we started that, starting a new type of program or equipment can be a little daunting. And that's why we are here to help you get started. But honestly, after the first time or two, you're going, oh, okay, I can do that. And then you'll sit down and you'll be a pro. And if it's only if something strange happens, hey, come help. We're like, what can we do? How can we help? And we do so enjoy helping people. We do love people coming in. We've had people come from New York. Their daughter lives here. She told their mother about it. Her mom came down with a bunch of photos and spent a week or 2 coming in and getting it done. So we do have people come from other places. We are happy to help. And even with the videos, once you do it once, twice, it's a routine, it's rotation, and you're going through. So hopefully that gave you an idea of how it's done and truly how simple it is. When I first saw it, I thought, oh my God, I am never going to figure out how to do this. But once I did it a time or 2, it's like, oh, okay, I can do this. And I have a coworker who keeps calling herself inept. She is not inept. She knows how to do this, but it's a little daunting when you use a new machine and you haven't used it before. So, take a chance. You always have your original. Nothing can go wrong from there. And I think you'll be really pleased with the results. And while it may take a longer than sending your stuff out, you still have possession of your items. You can make a lot of choices yourself. You can make sure it's being done correctly. And you don't have to worry about the mail getting it lost, which is a big fear, especially with some of those old things. Some of my slides are from the 40s, the 50s. Those are not replaceable. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I was able to give you some newfound knowledge, or at least the confidence to give it a try. I sent you the documents to try and help you, and you can always contact me and say, hey, Christy, I'm not quite sure what I need to do here. Can you give me a help out? Can you give me a hand? Can you explain this to me? And I only did the smaller scanner because that's more likely what you might find in a public library. If you run into one with a larger library, tell me what type it is, and I'll help you go and walk you through it if I'm able to. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I am open to questions. Um, and anything I can help people with.
All right, I'll open it up to the class. And if you have a question, since we are recording, please just unmute your microphone, ask the question, and then please mute your microphone, but leave your cameras off. And we'll wait for a few seconds here.
Hi guys, it's
Go ahead, Wendy.
it's Wendy. Hey, Christy, thank you very much. Wow, what a great service for your library. I now you know, Sue did all that work for me, but I also had sent some off to one of those professional companies. And so your point with the head partial cut, I have so many pictures to go through, but now I really need to look at those and make sure that that they did a good job. So thanks for the reminder to do that. But I'm envious with all your tools.
Particularly if it's the 126 or the 110 that some
Okay.
of us had back in the day. Those are the ones you really want to check. Those are the ones that are most likely to have been possibly changed. And I honestly have not gone back into my CDs to see what the digitized slide looks like, because I highly doubt that they were actually sitting there looking at each one. It probably went through an automated system. So I do need to get my CDs out at some point, compare them. And if I have to, I'll just find those and come do them again myself.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. So yeah, there's just so much to do and not enough time to do it, as we all know. But hey,
Yeah.
at least we've got it digitized for when we're even older and have more time. So thank you, Christy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Christy, I converted all my, well, not I shouldn't say all, almost all of my old VHS tapes, and I spent over $700 doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? The quality wasn't even that great because, you know, like you said, I think it's an automated process. And, you know, a lot of those old VHS tapes that, you know, the tracking is an issue. And, you know, if you're not there when you're when you're transferring it to, you know, a DVD or a CD or even to the cloud, you have to actually sit there and work with the tracking. So I'm assuming that the stations that you have to convert VHS over to digital, does it have the ability to work with the tracking?
We haven't really had any issues with the tracking. Usually the only tracking issues have been initially with the Hi8 using the camcorders. There'll be a little tracking in the beginning, but not so much more recently with the players. But there's always Photoshop to help clean things up. But yeah, I would have to go in and look because we really haven't had. Now, one thing I will caution with the VHS is sometimes people left them in the middle, and several times in rewinding them to get them to the start, the tape disconnected from one side of the reel. And it is not the easiest thing to reconnect the tape to the wheel to get it to actually, I've been able to do it once out of 4 tries, and get it to work. And I always feel so bad when that happens, but there's not much we can do when it does. But I'll have to look into about the tracking part on the VHS because we've been lucky so far. The main things was the mom and the dad who are in digitizing old VHSs, and they kept finding where their kids had taped over family videos with TV shows. And she was getting angrier and angrier, going, if they taped over the wedding, I will kill them. And in one occasion where we did have a gentleman and his wife suddenly have to turn the VHS off because it was a tape from when he was much younger and before he met his wife. And it was not a VHS he ever wanted her to see and not one to be digitized in public. So that was like joke. So we have had some experiences, and we do keep tissues around because there has been tears many a times with people seeing the old footage, particularly if it's someone they've lost and hadn't seen in a long time, or their precious baby who's now in their 30s, um, when they were a little kid, so but we have fun with it.
I have so many negatives that either were developed and lost or were never developed past the original, and the originals are gone now. I just cannot believe how much money I could save by visiting your library and actually digitizing all those negatives. I have bag after bag after bag of negatives.
I
Uh,
have quite a number myself, and I spent a couple hundred doing our 800 slides, and I'm like, and they weren't even, some of them may have to be redone, but at least I had them done. But um, but yeah, some of them are going to have to be redone, particularly the ones that when I was a child, as those are more important to me.
Is there a website that lists all the libraries that have the capabilities like yours does? Or, I mean,
Not that I'm
just
aware
have
of, no.
you just have to call your library and see if they have the kind of
Yeah.
technology that you do?
Some of them may call it a memory lab, some may call it a memory station. One of the counties near me has they have something called Library of Things, and they're hoping to get some of the same equipment there. Sometimes it's called a digitization station. Try saying that 10 times fast. Um, and I know one of the counties near us has a small aspect. I may go look and see what they have. But we were fortunate with the grants that we received to be able to get the equipment we have. A lot of people just have a few small things. Um, so you just have to call it and find out. They should have something on their websites as to whether or not they have anything like it. Um, and for us, it's just a way to sign into the computer, your media that you're digitizing, and what you're going to save it on to, and your time, um, which, as you said, is a lot better than $700. And
Oh,
the
absolutely.
possibility of it getting lost in the mail, um, which then there's nothing you can do.
Absolutely. The one thing I caught in the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that you got a certain kind of grant. What was the name of the grant that you got?
Our initial grant it's part of the state library. They have an LSTA, Library Services and Technology Act. And it's through, the state government, the state library has these different grants, part of their act, to help us to be able to get equipment. And I'm not sure how much that grant was, because they had already been awarded it and had started ordering things when I came on board. And then we had a soft opening in September of 22. The first Wednesday of every month is Art Walk Downtown. And so we had a soft open house then, just to let people see. And then we started getting the news in and advertising it from there. And we had to have time to kind of learn some of the equipment. And then as people started saying, hey, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have that? We were able to apply for this Mellon grant, and we were just blown away that we received it and were able to expand. And we're going to be able to do some additional programs, and that equipment, particularly getting the Betamax, who would have thought somebody would ask for a Betamax, or a micro cassette, but people had come in about the 35 millimeter. It's like, ooh, no, can't fit those. Or they've had the 16 or 8 millimeter, but in a larger reel, which our projectors couldn't handle. But once it's a odd machine that I don't understand at all. I just look at it and, ooh, it's pretty. And I close it back up because, ooh, it's expensive. It's a professional quality machine. And so my two coworkers, Jay and Claire, are working on learning how to do it and how best it works. So once they get that down, we'll open up appointments for that particular machine. But yeah,
One of the questions, kind of librarian to librarian, and I apologize for the class because this is more of a librarian question, but space, getting a grant is one thing, but then space to put all the equipment you buy in is a different one. How did you accommodate for all this equipment in your library as far as space is concerned?
well, fortunately, we're in the main library downtown. We occupy basically half of the fourth floor. We're off on one corner, and the space they had at one point had different public computers spread throughout the whole building, and they decided several years ago to put them all into one corner of the library to have them all together. So if people have problems or issues, it's in one space. And so we gained some space when they took those computers out of our section, and they did a little bit more rearranging, and then we just kind of maneuvered things around. Obviously we used to have the very large microfilm machines, which took up more space. And since it's now in a much smaller, where it can be used off a computer, it didn't need as much space, gained space that way. We moved some of our microfilm cabinets over to another area, moved some of them into a back storage room where we have some collapsible shelving. And I think they were able to, because they also put some government documents back there, we're able to remove some shelving from that area, as well as a desk we were no longer using, reference desk we were no longer using. They got rid of that desk. And so we were able to carve out some space. Now, overall, for special collections, we do need more room if we're expanding the African American history collection. But that's a problem for another day.
Yes, I agree. Well, I'm going to open it back up to the class. Any questions for Christy? Christy, I'm just sitting here thinking what a valuable resource it would be if there was like a website with all the different libraries that offer this capability. I mean, you think that that would be a very useful website.
Yeah,
Not
I'm not sure who would need to put that together.
I
Yeah.
have a question that kind of ties into that. Can I,
Mhm.
can I ask it? Yeah, I just wanted to mention that this seems to be like a growing trend in libraries. I live in California, Orange County, California. Our local library system, Orange County Libraries, has 28 branches. They opened up a memory lab, that's what they
Mhm.
call theirs, in one of the branches in the city of Tustin. I want to say 2 years ago, something like that. And I haven't used it, I haven't seen it, but it has a lot of same equipment. I'm sure they don't have as much as yours have. Yours looks very, very comprehensive and complete. And like I said, I think this is kind of a trend in libraries. And it would be nice, like Suzanne said, to have a website that showed you which systems, but it's changing so rapidly because new library systems are adding these all the time. But I was just curious, you mentioned, of course it was through a grant, but I'm just wondering, what the cost of all this equipment is, and are the prices coming down? Do you know anything about that? And is that
Um,
thing you know anything about?
some of our VHS machines are Betamax. We actually bought off eBay.
Uh-huh.
The projector with the camcorder, there's a gentleman, I'm not sure where he's based. We actually get those off of eBay as well.
Huh.
And we may have used Amazon for one or two things. But he is patenting that setup with the camcorder. And it's to where it's perfectly leveled. We don't mess with that camcorder that's on that structure because we don't want to get it misaligned. I don't know how much that costs, and I'm not sure I really want to know. Um, but some of it, those projectors, you're having to find old projectors. And then so it just kind of depends on who's, because they're not still being made. We're just
Right.
buying old refurbished projectors, or he's buying old refurbished projectors, because each one of ours is a different model. So it's like, how does this one get threaded? How does this one get threaded? Which one does what? So,
But like you mentioned to Susanna, is if you go on a library's website, typically they will announce that or make a big deal about it. I know our library, they send that out on emails and there's stuff they kind of promote it, even though it's at just one of the branch libraries. But I would think pretty much and you're not going to find it in smaller libraries because this stuff's just too expensive. So it's going to be one of your larger library systems. So, maybe eventually it'll come to smaller libraries. And I'm thinking, well, Reno's a fairly big city and they probably have a lot of, a lot more money than, say some of the smaller towns, but they may not be big enough to afford something like that at this point, but maybe in the future.
and it also takes someone who um, takes the lead on getting it set up, getting it funded, whether through a grant or through donations. Um, it's you have to have a leader, and we're very fortunate that our supervisor uh, wanted to bring this here and expand our very small one computer station into the 16 stations we have now. I literally just heard the other day from a county next door who one of their customers had come up, used our memory lab, went back to them and said, "Why don't y'all have this here?"
Mhm. So this adjoining county, it's presumably fairly small, and they do have a memory lab. So that's encouraging to know that some of the smaller counties, now have them. But I also want to mention that the family search centers, some of those are starting to get these in them now. We have one in our county now. My county again has probably 20 family search centers. There's a main one up in the city of Orange. It's kind of like the regional one. It's a little bit larger. They have, more hours and everything, and they have added a lot of this equipment fairly recently also. So that's another source besides public libraries. You've got the family search centers that are starting to get these. And I'm thinking maybe I don't know if some universities or colleges might be getting these or not. I don't know. Maybe not because they're more of education and students and
Yeah,
stuff that wouldn't have. It's more of a need that like older folks that have this older type stuff that would want to
yeah.
convert it
They have some equipment, but then they're digitizing their
their own stuff. Yeah,
belongings, like their
right,
dissertations and
right.
old newspapers. The University of Florida has taken the lead in getting Florida newspapers digitized, with the exception of our local one because the old copy is on microfilm. We're not scanned. They did not use the best
Mm,
copy of the newspaper to scan onto microfilm.
mm.
So it can't really be scanned, digitized, because some of it can't be read. Um, so, and of course, our local paper hasn't released it to do that anyway. But yeah, the scanners are the easiest because you can go out to basically any store, buy a scanner. Some of them will have it where you can do slides and negatives. The VHS and all the high 8 player and all that, we use something called Elgato, one word, not two. And you can buy that off of Amazon for about 100 or so. And it's along with the software it has, it's basically a connector from the VHS to the computer. And then the software that actually operates it to make it digitized. Um, there's free software that you can use to do some editing of videos. Some are better than others. I liked Microsoft's old video editor. I'm not a fan of their Clipchamp, which is what I had to use this time. Um, and I had to do a lot of editing, so it was not as smooth as I had hoped it would be, because I had to do so much editing in order to get it to play back on my work computer. And I didn't have that issue with the old video editor, which is a shame because that was to me a little easier to use. But Randall, did you have a question or did we answer it or? So
No,
I saw
I
your
actually
hand
have
raised.
I actually have a question.
Mhm.
The video, what you just presented here today, do you have that on videos, and do we bring them up to go back over them?
Suzanne has recorded this today,
Yeah.
so that video will be available whenever she puts them up onto their YouTube channel.
Okay.
Um,
I was just wondering if you happen to have any of those there.
Yeah,
are
I'll
you
give
talking about videos that we have digitized?
No, I'm talking about the use of the equipment. My niece, who lives in Boise, Idaho, she's going to be trying to digitize a lot of stuff. And it turns out the Epson is one of the things she's going to be using. And I was just wondering if you had anything there that you can go online and look it up, or if she'll just have to wait till TMCC gets it up on their website.
Oh, Randall, you're saying like how to use the Epson scanner is what you're saying.
Yeah, like what she when she when she was talking about the Epson scanner. I know that'll be eventually available on TMCC, but is that something that's also available at the library there that we can go online and look at it?
We don't have any videos of how to use it. I just took my iPhone and
Okay.
made a video for today's presentation. I did send, or I had Suzanne send everybody 2 attachments, and one is kind of a step-by-step on using the scanner I used.
I already downloaded that.
So that's, and if she's using the larger format, it really depends on what scanner you're using, as far as the software. But I'm sure there's probably some YouTube or you could Google how to scan these things. And there's manuals out there you can look at. If, like if anybody runs into that large format scanner, I can make a copy of what we have out at our desks for people to use, and send it out to y'all. And I'm always happy to be contacted, very simple, just kdorney@coj.net, and email me and say, hey, I'm trying to use the scanner, or hey, can you recommend this? Can you recommend that?
Well,
You know,
the scanner she just got is the Epson V600 Perfection.
Okay, that sounds what I use today. So yeah, it's real simple. I mean,
Okay.
there'll be an online manual, since nothing comes with our manuals anymore. But the handout I gave you will has the screenshots and such, so where she can at least kind of get started, and if she has questions, I'm happy to answer anything. Send her my way, send her to Suzanne, who can send her my way. However,
All
I'm
right.
happy to do that.
Well, thank you.
Christy, at Roots Tech every year, now that they're back in person, because for a few years because of COVID they were all online,
Mhm.
but they've always had the Epson people there, with their own booth selling their scanners to people who want to buy them for home use to convert everything. And now I'm sitting there thinking, wow, all the money that you can save just by going to your public library if they have that same kind of equipment and do it without having to have that bulk in your house and also spend the money out of your budget.
Yeah. And I was at a Rotary meeting telling them about our meeting, our memory lab, and I was asked if we are getting any pushback from companies that do this or even local companies. I'm like, have not heard anything. You know, not one comment from a local group or a national group saying, hey, why are you offering this for free? You're taking away our jobs. You know, there's way too many people who don't want to be bothered to do it themselves that will always send them off, um, for us to really impact those types of businesses. But we're here for those that can't afford to or want to have a little bit more control. Um, you know, and because there's a lot of people who just can't afford to spend two, three, four plus $100 to digitize the stuff, but they can spend a few hours every week or, you know, an hour here, hour there and get it done. So,
George just
yeah.
put a comment into the chat box. He says more and more libraries are utilizing the Library of Things now also. My daughter has checked out a paper shredder from her library a couple of times. You know, and that kind of brings me to the thinking. I know that some of the local libraries, because we're right here on the California-Nevada border, and a lot of libraries will allow the other libraries, you know, along the border to use their, you know, their items to be checked out. And I know they've been having hotspots that they're checking out now,
Mhm.
which, you know, helping people, you know, get internet access that otherwise wouldn't. And also California Park passes. You know, you can
Mhm.
check out a California Park pass for like a week or two, whatever it is. So yeah, George, it's a very good point. A library of things. That's absolutely how libraries are changing to meet the needs of the times.
I know of some libraries that they have cake pans, garden tools, seeds. One of my local libraries has a seed library where you bring in some seeds from your plants and they have some seeds that you can take, kind of a give and take type thing. Um, home tools. Pasco County has a woodworking shop inside one of their libraries. You have to get some training first before you can use these electric saws and such, but they have them available there. Which since I come from, you know, my dad did a lot of woodworking, you know, that really appeals to me because I don't want any of that equipment. But if I wanted to go make a birdhouse, you know, how great would it be to be able to go to my library, make the birdhouse and not have to buy all that equipment, just take my own wood and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there's all sorts, there's games. We have some laptops and hotspots here. Unfortunately, many of them have not been returned, so our availability is going down and down. One summer we had state park passes, and my sister and I used that at one of our state parks. You would get to have it for a week. Um, so yeah, that it's all sorts of things, you know. Truly, libraries are not books anymore. They're community centers. They're meeting the needs. They and they're not silent places anymore. They're places for people to gather. And um, you know, I told one guy once who was upset about the noise of people typing on the computers, and he goes, "Libraries are supposed to be silent." I went, "No, they're not." And the look on his face, you would have thought I said a foul word. But
You know,
so yeah.
which kind of brings me, Christy, to something that, you know, I've mentioned many times here in our open genealogy lab is if you don't support your public library or your academic library, as in our case, um, those resources will not be available. And I cannot stress that to everybody in the class. Go out wherever you live and support your local and academic and special libraries, you know, whatever law libraries, you know, get out and make yourself known in the community about the value of libraries because, like you said, libraries are changing. I mean, 7 years ago, nobody would have thought in our library there would ever be an open genealogy lab and a dedicated family history research room. But there was a need. Like you said, libraries are meeting the changing needs of the patrons. And now we have one. It took 7 years to, get it up and running and get it populated with books on the shelf, and maps and digital resources and such, databases. It all takes time and money and human resources to make it happen. But once again, if there's no one using it, you will lose it, and the library will change to the needs of those who are going to use it, and leave those who do not use it behind. So,
Yeah.
that's so important. Go out and support your library. Donate your time, donate your money. Frequent it as a patron. Promote it, to friends and relatives, and
Yeah, using the libraries is the most important in promoting it. They've determined that taxpayers here pay out of their property taxes $175 for the library per person. And so because it's taxpayer funded, if you don't live within the county or work in there's certain exceptions. We charge if you don't live here, and we charge you $175 a year if you want a library card here, with the exception for the Connect card, which is just for computer use. But if you want to use our online sources, check out our books, we do charge out of county that amount. It started with $40 several years ago, went up to 100, just recently went up to 175. But think about it, how much may you spend on books a year, or internet, or scanners, or printing ink and stuff, when it's already paid for here in the library.
I know most public libraries. I know here in Carson City, our library once a year sends out a digital survey to everybody in the community and says, what is it that we're doing right? What is it we're doing wrong? And what is it that you want us to see? What do you want in our library? And those are your opportunities. And most libraries also have suggestion boxes too, where you can email the head librarian. There's a million ways you can make your voice known about what you think your library needs. So, please, take advantage of that. And if your library doesn't have a local digitalization center like the Jacksonville Public Library does, speak to your head librarian in your local library, and she can voice her opinion to, like you said, the state library, which you generously got that funding from the state library. Every library can apply for a state grant, and every state has a state library. And, but unless the librarians know what you want, you're never going to get it.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, looks like, Christy, all the questions have been answered. So I really thank so much for a wonderful presentation. And I assume you're going to stay for the second half of class?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, then I'll go ahead and stop the recording.